For us as real estate investors, typically our biggest expense would be marketing. That's our entire business is direct to seller marketing. So for us, our biggest expense would be marketing. So it's really important that you know for every marketing dollar that you're putting in, how much money you're making. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharad. I'm the owner and founder of REsimpli. I live in Carlsbad, California, about 45 minutes north of San Diego. Happily married with 2 kids. Been vegan for 4 years. Just a fun fact, I passed my road test on 3rd attempt in New York. And first time I ever drove was from a cross-country drive from New York to Chicago, because my company was paying me a little bit extra money if I moved on my own. And being a cheap guy, I just decided to move on my own. I didn't have much stuff. I'm an active real estate investor in Northwest Indiana. So for those of you who are not familiar with the area, it's right outside of Chicago, 30 to 45 minutes outside of Chicago, but in Indiana. So I used to live in downtown Chicago. That's why I started investing in Indiana. I have an office in Indiana. We do all our flips, everything in Indiana and in no other market. So far, since I started investing, bought my first property in August 2010, and I've completed over 750 deals. Now I do about 20 to 25 deals a year, because I have a couple of other businesses that keep me busy. But we do 20 to 25 flips a year. We don't really wholesale. We close every property. We do a rehab and then sell most of them to turnkey investors now. And some properties we sell to your typical retail flip. I own about 50 plus rental properties. They're all paid for free and clear except 2 properties that I have small loans on. And I also own a property management company. And then with REsimpli, that's kind of what I spend most of my time on. And then, with that, I'm on a personal mission to help real estate investors like yourself to close more deals with less software. So if you guys have any questions on any of this, more than happy to discuss, answer any questions you guys have. I've had some conversations with some of you guys outside of these calls about something that I'm doing in my business with flipping, with project management, with property management. I'm more than happy to share any insight on kind of what we're doing in our business. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email on sharad@resempli.com, and then we can connect on a call and stuff, and then can answer any questions. So what I wanted to go over today was really, really important topic. I feel like not many investors focus on this, but I was doing a call with my team last week, and we started, that was Friday. Yeah, Friday, we're doing a call September 1st, looking at a number on August, and made some decisions on with marketing, what we need to do more of, what we need to do less of. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Why it's really important if you guys are not doing that, on why you should be really tracking your numbers to know. For us as real estate investors, typically our biggest expense would be marketing. That's our entire business is direct to seller marketing. So for us, our biggest expense would be marketing. So it's really important that you know for every marketing dollar that you're putting in, how much money you're making. I know as real estate investors, we tend to focus on, how many deals I'm doing, how much is my gross revenue. I want to hit that 6-figure number. I want to hit that 7-figure number in revenue. But that's not the most important number that you want to be focusing on. You want to be focusing on the bottom line, right? Would you rather do $1 million in revenue and then only have $50,000 in net profit, or would you rather do $800,000 of revenue and have $250,000, $300,000 of net profit at the end of the day? Those are the things that you need to look at, and that's where I feel running a very efficient business and setting it up properly makes a huge, huge difference. And then again, like I mentioned, marketing tends to be the biggest expense for most investors. Whatever marketing doing, it generally tends to be the biggest expense for us. And then if you are being very efficient with that, it's going to help you, increase your net profit. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over. So the first thing you want to do is you want to set up separate campaigns for separate purposes. So think of it, if you're doing direct mail versus cold calling, you don't want to be using the same phone number for your tracking purposes, because then you don't know whether it's your direct mail working or your cold calling working. Or let me give an example of, let's say, bandit signs, right? Let's say if you have 1,000 pieces of direct mail that you send out, and then you have, bandit signs in your city that you put 10, 15 bandit signs, but you end up using the same phone numbers, which we noticed a lot of investors when they're starting out, it's just the simplest thing to do. They would use the same phone number for their direct mail. They would use the same phone number for their bandit sign. And what happens is, let's say send out those 1,000 direct mail, and then you put 10 bandit signs. You start getting calls, you get like about 50 calls, and then you go on a few appointments, you end up closing your deals. But unless you ask the person, that you're communicating with, the person that called in, whether they texted you or they called you, you have no idea whether you got those calls from direct mail or whether you got those calls from bandit sign. So you may have spent, let's say, $500 on sending that direct mail, and you spend, let's say, another 200, 300. Let's say you spend total $1,000, between your direct mail, $500 and $500 on your bandit sign. And you end up making, let's say, $10,000. You're happy that you spent $1,000 on your marketing and you made $10,000, but you have no idea whether it was the direct mail that actually worked or whether it was the bandit sign. Now, you got that deal and you want to put more money into your business. Should you put that money towards more direct mail, or should you put that money towards more bandit sign? So that's where having, a simple thing of having separate phone numbers for your marketing purposes makes a huge difference. That's a very, very simple thing. And even if you look at within direct mail, right? I do a lot of direct mail. I have like 43 different tracking numbers that we use. So even if you look at within direct mail, you have no idea, unless you're using different phone numbers for different marketing purposes, which list is actually working. So let's say you pull a list of absentee owners, and then you have a list of probate. Each list is 1,000 people, and you end up sending, 1,000 pieces to your absentee list. You end up sending 1,000 pieces to your probate list. Again, same thing happens. You get about 50 calls, go on some appointments, and then you get a deal from that. You make another $10,000. You're happy. Now you need to invest more money. The decision is, should you invest more money into absentee list? Should you invest more money into probate list? Unless you're using different phone numbers, or unless you have a way to clearly track where the leads are coming from, you will never ever have any clarity. It may be the case where you send those 1,000 pieces each to absentee and 1,000 pieces to your probate list, and you get 50 calls. You may have gotten 40 calls from your absentee list and only 10 calls from your probate list. And out of those 10 calls that you got from your probate list, you went on 7 appointments, and you made 4 offers, and you ended up getting your deals. And then the 40 calls that you got from absentee, they all wanted to be taken off the marketing list. Unless you know exactly what's working, which list is actually working, which marketing is actually working, you may be spending money on some marketing channels that are actually not making any money, just because you put them all under the same bucket. You may just continue to spend that money. So now, if you have different phone numbers, what you may be able to know is, you spend that money on absentee list, but you didn't actually get any leads. You didn't get any qualified leads. You didn't get any appointments. You didn't make any offers on that. So maybe you don't need to spend that $500 on the absentee list. You can actually double down on your probate list, because that's where you're getting your high quality leads. You're not getting as many leads, but the leads that you're getting tend to be high quality. And that's the first thing you want to do, is set up different phone numbers for your different marketing. And what you want to do is, so when you're buying a phone number, let's say, we're switching to a different third-party service. But basically what you would do is, the phone number that you have, you want to assign it to a specific marketing campaign. So for example, if I go here, lead source would be whatever marketing you're doing, right? Whether it's your direct mail, whether it's your cold calling, whether it's your bandit sign, pay-per-lead, whatever it might be, select that first. And then after that, you want to give it a campaign name. So if I go into this, so this, for example, if I'm using this phone number for my direct mail, do it right here. And then my campaign name would be probate and specific city, if I want to go to that level of detail. So for us, what we do is, when we're doing direct mail for our businesses, we have like 8 different campaigns. We have an entire list. We divide it into 8 different campaigns, because we want to know exactly if we're sending it to absentee list with 5 years of ownership and unknown equity, or if we have unknown equity, unknown sale there. So we go very, very in depth with that. but at least at a minimum, you want to do, start separating your very, very minimum different marketing channels that you have, direct mail versus your radio ads, for example. You want to do that. And then once you've done that, then within direct mail, different lists that you have. So that's the first thing you want to start out with is when you're buying a phone number, assign it to the marketing channel that you're going to be using with, in this case, direct mail. And then within that marketing channel, is there a specific campaign that you can assign? So be as specific as you can be with assigning that marketing channel. And then once you've done that, so anytime you get any calls on these phone numbers, they are going to be automatically assigned to that specific marketing campaign. So if I go right here, if I get any leads in my system, so for example, if I go right here, so this one tells me that this lead came from my Google AdWords PPC and Google PPC campaign that I have. So that's very important for me to know, because if I'm using one phone number, it may just say general marketing and then just general campaign. I have no idea if I got this lead from Google PPC, if I got this lead from direct mail. Another important reason is, as you get more and more advanced, is the leads that are coming in from your Google PPC, you may want to handle them differently from leads that are coming in from your direct mail. You want to have different conversation. So that's why it starts becoming more and more important to, start separating your list, separating your marketing tracking phone numbers. So once you've done that, once you've set up your separate phone numbers for different marketing purposes, as you're getting these leads, you'll easily know which lead source it came from, which marketing channel. So if I go into the next one, this one also came from Google direct AdWords. Let me go into a different one. Yeah. So this one, for example, I have it marked as paper lead, need to sell my house fast. So it's important for me to know that this one came from paper lead, need to sell my house fast, versus, a lead coming in from my Google AdWords. And once you've done that, so imagine like you have hundreds of leads that are in your pipeline. The next thing you want to do is you want to go into your KPI section and you want to go into the marketing tab. And that's where you want to start reviewing all the leads that you have in your pipeline by different marketing type and different campaigns that you have within that. So for example, if I have my direct mail, so if I look right here, I can see that from my direct mail, I had one lead that came in from my probate list in Medival, and then 3 leads came in from my probate list in Hammond. And then you can track it, down the pipeline on how many leads came in, how many of those leads were actually qualified leads, how many of those you went on an appointment, how many offers did you make, and how many did you get under contract, and how many deals did you actually end up getting. So this starts becoming more and more important in your business. So you want to be able to look at, how many leads you need before you get an appointment, how many appointments you need to go on before you make an offer, how many offers you need to make before you actually get a deal. So that's where it starts becoming super, super important in your business to know which marketing channel it's working in your business. And then the next thing is track your expenses and revenue. Revenue will be automatically tracked, but track your expenses based on a specific marketing campaign. So if I go into the banking section, let me go into, let me see if I have some transactions. Okay, I'll put a random transaction right here. So let's say if I want to add this transaction. So if I go in, I spend money with ABC Marketing, and then I pay this online, and I spend $500 right here, money out. And then if you're putting in your marketing number, it's not tied to a specific property, so you just do general business. An account would be, in my case, I'm going to choose direct mail. That's where I spend the money on. And then you'll notice that you can select different marketing campaigns. So all the marketing campaigns that I'm running in my business, let's say I spend this money on my probate list in Hammond. I spend $500. I go right here, I submit this information. Now, when I go back into my KPI section, I go into the marketing section right here. It's going to show me that how much money is spent in direct mail. If you were not tracking separately, you would just see $500 being spent in direct mail. But when you click right here, you can see exactly how much money you're spending on every single list. So as you start tracking the numbers by specific marketing campaign, within that marketing campaign, like within, by lead sources, so your direct mail, billboards, Google AdWords, and then within that lead sources, specific campaigns that you're running. So campaigns would be, let's say my probate list versus my absentee list, how much money I'm spending. And then you can keep tracking it down the line and see what is your cost per lead and what is your cost per deal and what is your ROI. So let me go back and see if I change it to a different time period. If it pulls some data in my dummy account. So yeah, I don't have any much data in it, but yeah, you can see, how many total leads I have, how many of those leads, what's my cost per lead, what's my cost per deal. So that's where it starts becoming more and more important as you are doing different marketing. If you're just doing one marketing, let's say if you're sending direct mail to your absentee list, then you can just use one phone number, but now, you go in and you buy a probate list. That's where you want to start tracking different number. And then once you've done that, and the next thing would be, let's say if you have a sold property. So this one came from Paperly, need to sell my house by 2364 Summer Wind Place. So next thing would be, as I'm booking any revenue to any of these properties, it would automatically be assigned to that specific campaign that I ran. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this property. And if I do this, so 2364 Summer Wind, and I'm going to take gain on income. So let's say this was my fix and flip income. And let me check it. All right, so if I go ahead and save it at the online. So if I go ahead and save this information right here, I go back to my KPI section and go into marketing. So notice that this revenue automatically got assigned to my need to sell my house fast. Now it'll keep accumulating. So as you're spending any money, let's say if I go back to my bank account, and if I take a test account, let's say if I spent another $500 on ABC marketing, let's say I'm going to do $1,000, and this was my general business online pay per lead business. It's not showing up in my account, but yeah, once you would do that, actually, let me see if I can pick a different example. Sold property. Sorry, this is my test account, so we tend to just move things. Yeah, all right, so I'm going to write 4840 Ivy Street. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. More than happy to answer that. All right, so this would be my 4840 Ivy Street. So I'm just going to move this. If I go back and refresh it. All right. Yeah. All right. So this moved from I need to sell my house fast over to my, other marketing list. Let me check. Direct mail. I don't know. So as you're updating your lead source or marketing campaigns, the KPI should get updated right here. Okay, so it moved over to my, probate list Meticulously. Now, as I'm spending any money in my business, so if I go back and let's say if I go into this account and, I'm spending another $1,000 on my marketing to, let's say I'm going to do $2,000 money out, and I'm going to do general business, direct mail, and this was for my, let's say I do this. And as I'm putting in my expenses or revenue number, my KPI would get updated in real time, so I don't have to track it, separately. Now I can see that on my direct mail, I spend $2,500, but I spend that money in my Hammond list, but all the money that I made is from my medical list. So let me also put in a small amount in my medical list number. Charge, general business. Okay, so if I do this, I go back, and this is what you want to start looking at on, weekly basis or a minimum monthly basis to see how much money you're spending on each marketing channel that you have. So in this case, I can see that I spend, $1,000 on my probate list in Meadowville City, and then I'll spend $2,500 on my Hammond. And then even though I've gotten, 27 leads from my Hammond, but only got 2 leads, but the 2 leads that I got, I made $100,000 from that. And then I can see my cost per lead, cost per deal, and ROI. So what ROI tells you is for every dollar that you're putting in your marketing, how much money are you making from that? So as you start putting in more and more money into your marketing, this will keep getting updated in cost per lead, and cost per deal will keep getting updated in real time. So if I went back and I said, let's say I spent another, $5,000 in my list of direct mail. Hit this. Okay. So if I do this, I go back. So right now my cost per lead is $500. My cost per lead is $1,000. My ROI is $101. But once I put in additional numbers that I have in the system, and I go back to marketing, so you see this got updated in real time, and my cost per lead went up, my cost per deal went up, and my ROI went down. So as you're spending more money in marketing, if your revenue isn't going up, your cost per deal cost per lead and cost per deal would keep going up, and then your ROI would keep coming down. So you started out with, let's say, spend $1,000, you made $10,000 on your marketing. You spend $1,000 in marketing and you made $10,000 from it. So for every dollar that you put in, you make $10. Now you spend another $1,000, you only made $10,000 so far. Your ROI, or your return on investment, would now be 5, because you spent $2,000 and you've only made $10,000 from it. So your ROI is 5, meaning for every dollar that you put into marketing so far, you've only made $5 in your business. So then it would start getting adjusted. As you make more money, your ROI would go up. As you spend more in marketing, your ROI would come down. So that's why it's important that you look at the numbers on a weekly basis. What we did in our business was we started looking at a direct mail tends to be very, very consistent. So what we're doing in our business, looking at our numbers was, so some paper lead that we're doing are working okay, but not as well as what we had hoped for. So we're digging a little bit more into it on specific, reasons why those leads that we receive from paper lead or PPC, why, those didn't convert as well as we had hoped for. But we're going back to our basics, the fundamentals of doing more direct mail. So for direct mail, we're in a small market. So first of all, what we did was we looked at our top 5 performing cities. And those are the 5 cities that we're going to go into in our county. And then we're going to go in and pull a list of very simple absentee lists with 30% or more equity, and they've owned their house for 5 years. And plus we'll include unknown equity and unknown last sale date, and then just send them direct mail to those 5 cities. We're not doing homeowners. For now, we're only doing absentee owners with high equity, and they've owned their houses for 5 years. Plus including unknown equity and unknown last sale date. Again, those were all based on the decisions, on the numbers that we looked at, on what's working in our business and what's not working. So I highly recommend do this minimum once a month. Just look at the numbers, how much money you spend, how many leads you receive, how many appointments did you go on, how many offers did you make, and what marketing channel is actually working and not working in your business. So I'm going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions. All right. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I didn't notice any issues with disconnecting or reconnecting. Jeremy said he had some issues. Yeah, Zoom has made some changes. I used to be able to stream it to Facebook. I haven't been able to figure that out. But yeah, they made that change. All right. So yeah, there were a couple of questions on joining mastermind group. Yeah. Any other questions you guys have? Anything that you're doing in your business? I'm curious, with what you have noticed with the way the market is right now, what's working in your business and what's not working. Anything that you're noticing is performing better in your market versus not. One thing we notice is I love using Need to Sell My House Fast, but the challenge that we've run into is, we're very hyper focused on like the 5 cities that we buy in. And we Need to Sell My House Fast, for example, as one of the paper lead, you have to bid on the entire county. When we do that, more than half of our leads come from one specific city in our county, and it just financially numbers, but it doesn't make sense for us because we're just discarding all those leads in one city, and then just immediately doing that, our cost per lead goes up. So if you're spending $1,000 and getting 10 leads from that, but if you're discarding 5 of the leads, so we're actually effectively only getting 5 leads. So that's where it didn't make sense for us. So we decided to like just take a pause on that and just double down on direct mail for our business. And then even within direct mail, we hyper focus on 5 cities and with a very specific list that we're going after. It's a broad list, absentee list with 30% more equity, including unknown equity, and then 5 years of ownership, including unknown ownership. So it covers any niche list that you would have. Again, we're in a small market, so we're not talking a very big list, maybe 5 to 7,000 people in a list, and then just keep mailing them every 45 days is what we're doing in our market. Ricky has a question. Do you have a bookkeeper that updates this KPI analytics in backend using REsimpli? I was looking at a REsimpli financial right through the CRM using QuickBooks. I could save more money. Yeah, so Ricky, I have a bookkeeper who's been with me, so I don't use any QuickBooks. Everything we do in our business is done through REsimpli or our financials and everything. And we've started offering bookkeeping services to some companies as a beta service, and it's been going really well. We've been able to like reconcile their books completely. They've been able to get a much deeper insight into their business, how much money they're spending on each marketing channels, how much money they're making, and be able to make better decisions on that. So if you're interested in that, just send me an email at Sharad@REsimpli. I'll put my email in the chat. Yeah, so send an email to Sharad@REsimpli.com, and then I can connect you with the company that we're working with. And then they can manage all your books within REsimpli, like everything, all your transactions every single week, it's updated. So really nice to be able to go in and know exactly everything that's going in your business. All right, David has a question. Are those real mailer deals? If so, how many campaigns? No, this is just dummy numbers. This is just a test account that we have. I mean, the numbers are different now, of course, as you guys are all aware, it's a very competitive market in the sense. The biggest challenge is that you don't have enough inventory in the market. And I was just reading something in the news this morning that the tipping point for homeowners to sell their properties is about 5 to 5.5% interest rate. So as a homeowner, people that have locked in their 30-year fixed loan under 5.5% right now, they don't want to sell their property, because if they sell their property right now, they're going to have to get a mortgage at 7.5%. So that's what we noticed. The biggest issue being with just any marketing right now is that people don't want to sell their properties right now. But for us, it's not the number of leads that we're concerned about. It's about the high quality leads that we're concerned about. There's still people out there selling. And one of the things we noticed reviewing our numbers is we made some pretty good money from just buying properties from MLS, because we're not wholesaling. So we're buying, closing on those properties, and a lot of them we're selling to other investors as turnkey, and MLS doesn't cost us anything. So we're going back, looking at, properties on MLS and see if there's something we can do with that. If there's some sort of, profit potential that we have. One other thing you have to keep in mind is, for example, if your cost per deal is $5,000, right? In today's market, depending on what marketing you're doing, I think $5,000 is a reasonable number to assume, depending on the market. So if your, cost per deal is, if you need to spend $5,000 to make, let's say $20,000. So your net profit is $15,000 because you made 20, but you had to spend $5,000 on marketing. Now, because on MLS, for example, I'm not spending any money, or referral deals that you're getting, you're not spending any money on marketing. So you're not spending $5,000. I can be okay with making $15,000 on that deal because I don't have the $5,000 that I spent to make that 15. So those are another things that you want to look at, how much money you're spending, your ROI on that. At the end of the day, the most important number I would say is your ROI, right? Number of deals, number of leads isn't as important as ROI is. You want to, at least at a minimum, you want to see 3 ROI. So for every dollar that you're spending on any marketing, you have $3 coming back into your business. Soli has a question. Can you edit direct mail cards, or does it only give you 3 options for the basic plan? You can edit direct mail cards. solely. I mean, if you're talking about sending from, one off to a lead, then those are the three options that we have. But if you go into list stacking, and then from here, you can send direct mail. So you can do this, and then I can go ahead and send order direct mail. It'll take me through the steps of, picking out direct mail. So I'm just gonna just do test and next. Yeah, so right here, I have all these different postcard options. I can select from any one of these, and these are the ones that you can customize and edit and send. If you have any particular, text that you want to include your logo or any pictures, anything, we can do that. Okay. All right, and there's a question from RESUM. Based on your experience and those of others, would you invest in cold caller or text blast to get your first deal? I've noticed a lot of my calls are the correct numbers, but people don't answer. I've not tried texting yet, looking for some input. I personally, we don't do any texting, and especially now, given, texting isn't as simple anymore. Previously you could just buy a list, skip trace, and just start texting right away. It's not, it's not the same circumstances anymore. Now you have to actually get your business registered, approved before you can start texting. And if you're sending cold text messages, you could get shut down immediately. So that's something you have to keep in mind. If I had to choose between cold caller and text, I would do cold calling. And then just follow for those people, and then the ones that are picking up the calls, just try to improve on every part of the business, right? If you're texting people, if you're calling people, they're not picking up, the first thing I would look at is, okay, are your number getting marked as spam? Maybe start switching number. Don't use the same number to call like hundreds of people. Switch phone numbers, and then make sure your number is not getting marked as spam. If that's the case, once you do that, then people are picking up the call, and then make sure that, you have a script ready. Always have a script ready when you're calling. So you always, every single lead, you're following the same process. And as you talk to someone and they ask you a question that you don't have an answer, put that in your script. So next time you have an answer, just keep doing it, keep working on the script. Like, the more you systemize your business, the more processes that you have, the easier it will make for you in the long term, and more profitable it will be for you.
Sharad, I have a question on the REsimpli dialer.
Go ahead.
So that is actually what I'm using right now, and
okay.
I use it for the code. So I do SMS as well. I use launch control, the same exact list that I'm putting into launch control, I put into list stacking, and then I put that to the dialer. But I'm sure it only does 10,000 at a time into the dialer, right? So my question is this: that it's a single line dialer.
Right.
How many would you say you have your cold callers dial, connect, versus like the leads it gets? Like, what's a good number on that? A good metric?
The good metric, like we don't do I don't have a full-time cold caller. My lead manager that I have, I think I talked about in the last call or the one before that. So my lead manager is the one who's making calls. So her expectation is so she should be doing about 50 follow-ups, with the active leads that we have. That's one part of her responsibility. And then when she has downtime, she's making about 200 calls to prospects. I should say we are in the process of this week, like more focus on the absentee list. So buying our list, skip tracing, and then calling. But for us, the expectation for my cold caller, the expectation is to make 200 calls a day. For my lead manager, is to 200 calls a day. So about 1,000 calls a week, roughly, depending on how busy we have. If we have some good leads we're working on, so it may take up a little bit more of our time, and then cold calling goes on the back burner. But I would expect to have, again, depending on how good the list is, how well the skip tracing number and whatnot, should be able to get in touch with about, your contact rate should be about like 5 to 7% or higher. And then after that, once people pick up the phone, like depending on how, good your cold caller is, how, well they're able to convert those leads. But we remediate the phone numbers every week. We submit it to make sure they don't get marked by spam. Again, we do it on our end, but it's not something we have control on. The only thing we have control on is submitting it to the carriers and saying, hey, this number was marked as spam incorrectly. It should not be getting marked as spam. But if it still continues to do that, that's something that's controlled by carrier. I will say that it's getting more and more difficult. The numbers get marked as spam very, very quickly. I mean, just imagine the phone numbers that we have, those are not unique to us, right? Let's say if you have some phone numbers that you have through REsimpli, and then you're like, hey, these 10 numbers are getting marked as spam, I'm just going to get rid of them. Those numbers just will stay within the pool of phone numbers. They may be picked up by, let's say, me. I don't know that those phone numbers were being marked as spam, or they may be good, but I could start calling from them, but they're already getting marked as spam. Or if they're good, if I'm doing a lot of cold calling, and then not enough people are picking up my phone, and it tells the carrier that, hey, this numbers, the calls that are coming from this number, not many people are picking up, or the conversation that they're having are not very long conversation. So those are things that you want to look at. Let's say if you are leaving, just something as simple as if you're cold call making call, when they're leaving a voicemail, just try to leave a long voicemail.
Drop to voicemail.
Yeah, just drop. Yeah, so even if it dropped to voicemail, try to make it like 30 seconds or longer.
Right.
It just like, it helps with your algorithm. It increases your average call durations, and then don't have, you want to have very minimal number of abandoned calls. So abandoned calls would be, so if I go right here into dialer, so these are the things that you want to look at is like your abandoned calls, right? These are the calls that you make and where the person that you called, they didn't pick up the call and you hung up. Like these get, if you have many of these, this is definitely doesn't bode well for your phone numbers, right? If you have a lot of, abandoned calls where you're calling someone, before someone picks up, you hang up, like that's why, like if you're using a triple line dialer, it happens a lot. Your number will immediately start getting marked as spam because you're calling 3 people at a time. A couple of people pick up, but you can only talk to one person. The other calls get disconnected, or the third person that doesn't pick up, you were just calling, before they picked up, you hung up. So that goes at abandoned calls. So all of these algorithms, the carriers look at, and then they decide, then they have their algorithm and say, okay, this number is going to start getting marked as spam.
Are these stats are these stats showing up for everyone, or is it just your end? Because I'm not even able to see any of this. Like I'm on stats right now, and it just says 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, everyone.
It should be. I mean, apply the filter and see that it's, yeah. But and then other thing is short duration calls. So short duration calls are calls that are less than 6 seconds. I mean, this is from our carrier provider telling us that make sure you don't have that many calls, short duration calls. So again, that's why when you're leaving a voicemail, when you're having a conversation with someone, do like prolong the call as much as you can. It all helps with the quality of your phone number that you have.
And then does the call, last question, does the call connected actually work correctly for, like, if you go to your campaigns, and then call connected should mean like as long as it connected, even if it's not interested, or?
So call connected means when you're doing call disposition, what you select, whether the call was connected or not connected. So that's based on the call disposition, the call results page that you have. So if I go right here, and if I try to, let me see.
But it'll only work per property though. Like if you go to call next number, first person picked up, second number picked up, it'll only count that as one, correct?
First number for the same property, you call the first number, and then they didn't pick up, and then you call the second number, they picked up.
Yeah.
Right. So it'll take the call result of the second number, then whatever is the latest call result is.
And it only does it once, like per property, right? Like if there's like multiple numbers in a specific property, phone one, phone two.
So every property will have one call result, for example. So in this case, I don't have any status for this one, but let me go do one. So every property will have one call result, when you do that. So if I do edit record, Or when I do it from the dialer, it'll just have one call result for each property. So you won't have multiple call results for the same property. Like it's basically going on whatever the last status was.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
first time when you call, you were not able to connect with them. Second time when you call the same phone number, let's say they only have one phone number, then it would update it to last status of, let's say, connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you upload your phone numbers, do you only do like, because I upload my raw list into the list stacking, and I realized that like that has 6 numbers in it, right? So I shouldn't have my cold callers be dialing all those numbers, right? Because then their connection ratio is just going to be so low, it's insane.
I mean, what I've noticed is, it's not in the quantity of phone numbers. You want to focus on the quality of phone numbers. There's no point having like 10 phone numbers. Majority of time, like 95, 98% of the time, it's like the first or second number that you actually are valid number. After that, you're just getting like random phone numbers. So I would just focus on like first couple of numbers. You could always try out, just kind of internally try a couple of different skip tracing services, right? Like the one that we use, we provide only 3 phone numbers and up to 4 email addresses. You could get 20 phone numbers, but my experience talking to the investor, it's like the first couple of phone numbers that you have a good chance of getting in touch with the seller. But you could try out and see if you're having any luck, like calling 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th number or beyond that, right? And see if it makes sense to continue doing that. But just keep in mind, the more you call people, the more abandoned calls you have, short duration calls you have, people hanging up on you, the more it affects the quality of the phone numbers that you have. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Lynn said, can we get a copy of this video? Yeah, so we'll have copy of this video on, if you go to help.REsimpli.com. So everything gets published in right here, mastermind call. So I'll put this in the link right here in the chat. Did the chat go? Okay, right here. Yeah, so you can grab it. It should be uploaded by the end of the week. So you can go back and just search by the date and it should be uploaded right there. So we have multiple phone numbers in REsimpli. We just purchase a phone number and sell that one as default, set that as caller ID. These are instances that the caller ID is being changed randomly on mobile web app. How can you fix this? So Lynn is saying that they have multiple phone numbers in REsimpli and they have set one as the default caller ID. There are instances that the caller ID is being changed randomly by the mobile or web app. How can we fix it? So when you're calling from the web app, you don't have the option of changing the phone number. It'll just call from the phone number that it's assigned to. But then if you want to send an email to me, and if you have a ticket with our team, that we can look into it and just make sure that you have it set up correctly. If not, then I'll have someone from our team, help you with that. Okay. Cool. Any other questions you guys have, or anything that you're doing in your business that you're noticing is working right now? I think it'll be interesting as, a lot of us investors were doing SMS marketing, how that would start changing over the next month or two with 10 DLC getting coming in effect. Will be interesting. That's something I've been telling investors, just be a little bit mindful of how you're using text messaging. Just because you're 10 DLC approved doesn't mean it gives you permission to start sending cold text messages. You want to be very, very mindful of that. You don't want to get blocked by carriers. If you're sending, when we're talking to a provider, they say, based on what they have noticed in their experience, if you have an opt-out rate of 5% or higher, opt-out rate means if you send 100 text messages and 5 of those people reply back, stop, don't text me, unsubscribe, opt out, or any messages similar to that, then what will happen is your numbers will start getting blocked by carriers. What that means is we've started noticing that with Verizon the most right now, where Verizon may say, hey, you're sending too many spam messages to our customers. We're not going to allow any more text messages from your phone number to be delivered to our customers. So if you're sending text messages, make sure you have proper opt-in from them. And then the use case that you're approved for, you're staying compliant to that use case. And if you must do text messaging for lead gen, try to set up a separate business, separate entity for legal purposes, for your 10DLC purposes, and keep it separate from lead management part of your business. You don't want to mix that because you could end up getting blocked and it ends up actually affecting the deals that you may be working on, right? Let's say you may be doing cold texting from launch control and you get blocked. It may actually end up affecting your business in REsimpli. You may be working on a deal, really close to getting a signed contract, all of a sudden you can't text them anymore. So there could be some serious consequences. Again, it's very new. It'll be interesting to see how, over next couple of months, how people are getting more and more affected with this. All right, Carlos has a question. Are you using PPC? And if so, how do I get started with that? So Carlos, for PPC, yes, we use PPC. Depending on if you want to be specific with your question, how do we get started? Is that you're asking how do you get started on your own, or how do you use a service? On my own, honestly, it's not super complicated if you want to do it on your own. It's not super complicated. This is 3-4 years ago. I actually read a book. There's a couple of books out there. You can watch YouTube videos. Actually, if you send me an email, we had actually put together a course on how to do PPC on your own. If you send me an email, I'll have someone on my team give you access to that course. It's a very, very detailed course. It gives you step by step on everything that you need to do on PPC. It's very detailed course. I believe it's $500 for the course, but if you send me an email, I'll get you in touch with someone on our support team. But it's very, very detailed. I mean, if you could literally give that course you can do it yourself, or you can give someone on your team a VA. They can, if they follow step by step, they can do PPC, and it has every single keywords that you need to follow, every single, from setting up your Google account, all the way to how you should set up your budget, what you should do, with really extensive course. If you want to send me an email, then I'll connect you with our support team and they can get you access to that.
Rod, you said you have your dialers just calling prospects, right? So it's not like a raw list. It's the sellers that are saying what's your offer? I'm interested.
No, it's the raw list. So she's doing two things, right? Her priority is to call. So think of your prospects would be your raw list, people that you're just trying to basically convert into leads. So those would be prospects. So she's calling 200 of those. Actually, she's going to start calling. We were calling them, but we're buying new lists this week. So she'll start calling 200 of those, and then she calls 50 of the people that are leads for us. They may have become lead from different, they may have become lead from cold calling, from our PPC, paper lead, direct, or any other marketing. So she's calling 50 of those leads to basically move them along the pipeline. And then she's calling 200 raw prospects.
Okay. And how many people would you say she actually speaks to per day? Just an average on the dialer only.
On the dialer only, it's about 10 to 12 people.
10 to 12.
About 5, 7. Yeah. 5 to, I mean, again, it depends on the list also. Speaking, and then if they pick up and then they say, hey, you don't have the right person, whatnot. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. But yeah, I would say about 5 to 7% of the people. And we started noticing our list was also, we're going and buying a new list, reskip tracing, just cleaning up our list and doing that.
That's a good number though, you would say, 10 people per day for a cold caller?
I mean, I would not look at it 10 people per day, depending on how many calls you're making, right? If she's making 500 calls, I would expect that number to be higher. I would say maybe shoot for, 5 to 7% at a minimum. And then if you're getting lower than that, that means there's something wrong with the list or the phone number or something. And again, keep in mind that, as this, people are shifting a little bit away from cold calling, more and more investors are going to shift to cold calling. So imagine a seller, now all of a sudden, they were getting a lot of texts. Now they start getting a lot of calls. So that number will start shifting. So yeah, look into that. And then especially if you have a good niche list, maybe, you're doing cold calling and see if you can reach out to them through direct mail also, especially to a specific list, like a highly stacked list, like your probate, high equity, tax delinquent, pre-foreclosure, something like that. See if you can like figure out another way to get in touch with them.
Yeah, because I just don't want to like transfer all 6, 7 phone numbers into the dialer, like, but I do want it in list stacking. So is there any way to remove it when I'm putting it in the dialer? Like, because it should probably be phone one, phone two, and then landline phone one for the dialer.
Yeah, so you can do that. So if you're doing that, let's say if I select these and then I'm trying to push them to dialer, right? So if they're already on campaign, you can do that. You can move them to a specific campaign. But when you're actually calling them, that's where you can choose what specific phone numbers that you want to call. But it will push all the phone numbers over from this stack into dialers just to make sure it's a two-way sync proper. Okay, because if you upload something, let's say if you have 5 phone numbers in your list stack and you push them to dialer, all 5 numbers will go over to the dialer. But then when you start calling from the dialer, you can choose what phone numbers you want to call. If you want to call landlines, mobile, and gives you a couple of other options based on the phone status.
Yeah, because of the phone type, because you would
Yeah,
upload.
exactly. Yeah. And then let's say if you have those 5 phone numbers, now you go ahead and for the same record, you add 2 more phone numbers. So it's a 5, you have 7. So those will also get updated in list stacking and also in the dialer. So it will keep the numbers synced between the two. But yeah, I would shoot for like 5 to 7% and then see if you're not able to hit that number, like what is going on. If the numbers that you have, they're just ringing and nobody's picking up, or they're picking up, or like they're going to voicemail and the numbers are not active, and that's where you kind of start getting a little bit insight into why is it not that high.
How often should I be changing them?
How often you should be like changing your
Sorry,
like
simply. Yeah.
I mean, if I would look at a number, if you consider like over for a couple of weeks, if you are not having good connect rate, then I would get rid of the number. But again, like the thing to keep in mind is you may get rid of the number, get a new number, but the new number that you get may have been a number that I just discarded because I was not having good luck getting in touch with anyone with that number. So just because you get a new number doesn't mean like it's a fresh number for you, but it may be a discarded number by someone else, right? Just like you may get rid of some numbers and I may pick one of the numbers because I need that number in that area code. So that's something to keep in mind, is like just because you get a fresh number doesn't mean it's going to be a clean number. I may have just discarded it right now and you picked up. So now it's still a flag number. The flag status is not attached to me, attached to the number. So you pick up, it just carries over to you.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And like for the
Right.
calls on your calls that come back from the dialer, do you have that set up via IVR so that it can go straight to active leads if they press?
No, we just have them go to voicemail. I mean, honestly, vast majority of the time, these people are calling back and they have no idea. Like sometimes they call back and like, hey, who is this? Don't call me. So we don't want to be like taking those inbound calls. And then even like we don't do SMS anymore, but when we used to do SMS like a couple of years ago, we would have all those callbacks go directly to voicemail, just so that we're not fielding those calls. Most of the time people are saying, hey, don't call me. Why are you calling me? Don't text me. So it's just easier that they call back, and then we can just say, all right, do you want to be like, if someone doesn't want to talk to us, they want to be taken off the list, we don't necessarily want to be talking to them. We can just remove them from our marketing at that point.
Is there a way to automatically have it removed, or is that always manual? Because the way I
And
have it
no,
this is the same thing I do with launch control too. It connects to one of the REsimpli dialer numbers, and then it's going to say the reason for the call. We were interested in purchasing it in your area, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested, please press 1. If they press 1, it reroutes it to to a lead.
recent,
Yeah,
right.
the active leads phone number so that they can show up there, and then it would show where it's coming from as well. And if they press 2, which is to be taken off the list, it doesn't even show up in that dialer inbox at all.
Right. Yeah. So you could do that, but if you have both, if you initial call is coming into REsimpli number, then based on the IVR, we cannot change the status of that. I mean, at least not right now. Maybe we'll look into it in the future. We are looking to, for our backend provider that we are looking to switch from Clevo to Twilio. It's more on the backend stuff, just because we started running into some limitations with what we could do with Clevo, with the functionality that we're developing. It just started reaching the ceiling of the functionality that we could develop with that. So we are in the process switching to that, and that's something we'll look into, explore more into, if that's an option where we could do based on the IVR. Somebody presses 1, that they stay in the lead. If they press 2, they automatically move over to dead lead. I know some other investors have asked for that. Cool. Yeah, and then any of you guys to put in for the course, yeah, if you just please send an email to, again, I'll put my email in the chat, the Sharad at REsimpli, then I'll connect you with a support team and make sure you have access to the PPC course. Yeah, I would look into that. It's and then solely it's only for Google ads. It's not for Facebook ads. It's just for Google ads. Not even for Bing. It's just for Google ads. Facebook ads, I tried in the past. It just didn't work for us. Just imagine you have people going to Google and saying sell my house fast, but nobody's really going to Facebook and saying, hey, how do I sell my house fast? You'll get some leads, but generally they don't tend to be very motivated leads. They be very, very cold leads that you have to call them, text them, and engage them. But PPC leads tend to be highly motivated leads, relatively speaking. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on the call. Yeah, if you send me an email with Sharad at REsimpli, I'll make sure I get that information over to you. And then if you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to help. Yeah, for the PPC course, if you send me an email, we'll just make sure we get you an access to that. It'll show up in your Teachable account where we have the onboarding, so it'll just show up there. But make sure you send an email from your email that you have with REsimpli, so we'll make sure we get access to the right email address. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you guys on the next week call.